The stars glittered against the black void as the massive Viridian ship glided silently through space. Inside, Ambassador Zixalara paced nervously, her scaly skin reflecting the blue emergency lights. Her 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress among her kind. "Play the recording again," she ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the interior of Outpost Delta 9. The footage showed alien workers rushing in panic, dropping tools and supplies as they ran. Then the lights flickered and a dark shape moved across the screen. It wasn't solid, more like a shadow that bent light around it. The aliens in the video screamed soundlessly as the recording cut to static. This was the 8th outpost to go, dark in just 15 days. For the peaceful Galactic Confederation, this was unheard of. 300 years of exploration, and they had never faced anything like this. "We must inform the Council immediately," Zixalara said. Her assistant nodded and sent the emergency signal. Within hours, representatives from all 7 species of the Confederation gathered in the Grand Hall. The Viridians with their 4 eyes and green scales. The cloud-like nebulans floating in their special chambers. The insect-like Artheans clicking their mandibles nervously. The plant-based Florians swaying slightly. The crystalline silicons reflecting light from their faceted bodies. The aquatic, Marinians in their water tanks. And the newest members, the metallic-skinned Corvins. Ambassador Zixalara stepped forward. "Fellow representatives, we face an unprecedented threat. Something is attacking our outposts. Our people call it the Demon." Murmurs rippled through the hall. The Nebulan's clouds darkened with fear. "Show them," Zixalara said quietly. The recordings played on the massive screen. Each showed a similar pattern: normal activity, then panic, a strange dark shape, and finally, nothing. The council watched in silence. "What is it?" asked the Arthean representative, her mandibles clicking rapidly. "We don't know," admitted Zixalara. "It moves through solid matter. It distorts light. It emits frequencies that disrupt technology and cause extreme fear in all who encounter it. Can we stop it?" The Silicon representative's voice rang like crystal bells. "We've tried weapons, shields, and barriers. Nothing works. It simply passes through everything," Zixalara answered. The Marinian representative bubbled nervously in his tank. "Where did it come from?" "Unknown. It first appeared near the Perseus arm, but it's moving inward. We've established a quarantine zone covering 12 star systems, but we're not sure if that will contain it." As the council argued about what to do next, no one noticed the small alert appearing on a secondary screen. A new ship had just entered the edge of Confederation space, a human exploratory vessel called the USS Horizon. Far from the council meeting, Captain Elaine Walsh sat in her command chair on the bridge of the Horizon. She was tall, with short, brown hair and tired eyes that had seen too many long shifts. "Captain, we're receiving a strange alert from Confederation headquarters," said Greg Martinez at the communication station. He was young with dark hair and a serious face. "Put it on screen," Walsh ordered. The alert showed a large section of space marked in red. The message was simple: "Danger, quarantine in effect, do not enter." "What's going on in that section?" Walsh asked. Alan Reyes, the chief science officer, checked his instruments. He was middle-aged with glasses and always curious. "Unknown, Captain, but I'm picking up strange energy readings from within the zone." "Any distress signals?" Walsh asked. Martinez adjusted his equipment. "Yes, faint ones, breaking up badly. Sounds like panic, Captain." Walsh frowned. Humans had only joined the Confederation 2 years ago. They were still proving themselves to the older species, who found humans unpredictable and sometimes reckless. But Walsh couldn't ignore distress calls. "Plot a course to the edge of the quarantine zone," she ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." "Captain," said her first officer, Ben Harris, "Confederation protocols are clear about quarantine zones." Walsh nodded. "I know, but something's wrong out there, and people might need help." As the Horizon changed course, alarms sounded at Confederation headquarters. A monitoring officer rushed into the council chamber. "Ambassadors, a human ship is approaching the quarantine zone. "Stop them immediately," ordered the Arthean representative. "We've sent warnings," the officer replied. "They acknowledge, but continue their approach." Zixlar aside. "Humans, always curious even when it endangers them. Should we send ships to intercept?" asked the Corvan representative. "No time," said the officer. "They'll reach the edge of the zone in 2 hours. Send them all our data on the entity," ordered Zixalara. "Perhaps it will convince them to turn back." On the horizon, Martinez received the transmission. "Captain, Confederation Headquarters just sent a data package. It's disturbing." The crew watched in silence as the footage of the demon played on their screens. They saw the panic, the strange shadow, the abrupt endings. "Analysis?" Walsh asked when it finished. Reyes studied his readings. "The entity appears to emit a specific frequency that affects neural patterns in the species we've seen. It might explain the extreme fear response." "Could it affect humans the same way?" Walsh asked. "Unknown," admitted Reyes. "Our brain structure is different from these species." Walsh made her decision. "We'll proceed with caution. Prepare a shuttle with volunteer crew. We'll investigate the closest affected outpost." The shuttle team prepared for departure. Security Chief Natalie Patel checked her weapons, even though reports said they were useless against the entity. Engineer Jack Donovan modified their sensors based on the Confederation data. "This is crazy," Patel said as they boarded the shuttle. "We're deliberately going towards something that terrifies the most advanced species in the galaxy." Donovan grinned. "That's what humans do. We see something scary, we poke it with a stick." As the shuttle launched from the horizon, none of them noticed the slight shadow moving across the stars behind them. The entity had sensed their approach and changed course. For the first time, it had encountered something new. Beings that didn't flee immediately from its presence. The demon was curious about these humans just as they were curious about it. The difference was, the entity had been searching for something specific for a very long time. Perhaps these humans could help, if they didn't go mad with fear first. The shuttle approached the dark outpost, its lights cutting through the emptiness of space. Inside, the crew prepared for their first encounter with the Galactic Terror. They didn't know they were about to change the history of the Confederation forever. The shuttle docked at Outpost Vega 7 with a soft clunk. The station hung silent in space, its exterior lights still working, but no signs of life within. Security Chief Natalie Patel checked her weapon one last time before leading the team to the airlock. "Remember," she said, "we don't know if our equipment will work against this thing. Stay together and keep your comms open." The team stepped into the station. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing abandoned hallways. Food sat, half-eaten on tables. Doors were left open. Whatever happened here, it happened fast. Engineer Jack Donovan studied the readings on his modified scanner. The power systems are still functional. Life support is working. There's no obvious reason why they left. "Unless they were running from something," Alan Reyes said quietly. They moved deeper into the station. Patel noticed small things. A child's toy dropped on the floor, a jacket still hanging on a chair, family photos on desks. The aliens had lived here, made this place home. Now they were gone. "I'm getting some unusual readings," Donovan said, adjusting his device. "There's a strange energy signature. It's faint but similar to what was in the Confederation data." Captain Walsh's voice came through their comms. "Are you experiencing any unusual feelings? Fear? Anxiety?" The team members looked at each other. "Feel a bit uneasy," admitted Reyes, "but nothing extreme. Certainly not the panic we saw in the videos." "Keep monitoring your vital signs," Walsh ordered. "At the first sign of unusual stress, I want you back on the shuttle." They reached the station's control room. Patel tried accessing the computer systems while Donovan examined the environmental controls. "The last log entry was 15 days ago," Patel reported. "It just says, 'It's here,' and then nothing." "The air composition is normal," Donovan added. "No toxins or hallucinogens that might explain mass panic." Reyes was examining a wall panel when he noticed something odd. "There's a temperature fluctuation in this section. It's about 10 degrees colder than the rest of the station." Could be a life support malfunction, Donovan suggested. Or something else, Patel said, her hand moving to her weapon. The lights flickered. A shadow moved across the far wall, not cast by any of them. It flowed like water, stopping at the edge of the room. Nobody move, Patel whispered. The shadow hovered, seeming to study them. Unlike the aliens in the videos, the humans felt only mild discomfort, a pressure behind their eyes, a ringing in their ears. Unpleasant, but manageable. I'm recording this, Reyes said softly, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. The shadow pulsed, growing darker, then lighter. It emitted a low sound more felt than heard. It's communicating? Donovan wondered. Instead of running, Patel took a step forward. The shadow retreated slightly, then moved toward her. When it was just a few feet away, it stopped. Hello? Patel said, feeling slightly foolish talking to a shadow. We're humans, we're here to help. The shadow pulsed again, then suddenly flowed through the wall and disappeared. Did you see that? Donovan exclaimed. It went right through solid metal. Captain, Patel reported, we've made contact with the entity. It didn't attack us. It seemed curious. Return to the shuttle immediately, Walsh ordered. I want a full report and medical exams for all of you. Back on the horizon, Medical Officer Samantha Chen ran tests on the team. She was short with kind eyes behind round glasses. Your neural activity shows some unusual patterns, she told them, but nothing like the extreme fear response we saw in the alien footage. For some reason, this entity affects humans differently. In the briefing room, the team reported their findings to Captain Walsh and First Officer Harris. It wasn't aggressive, Patel emphasized. It had every opportunity to attack us, but it didn't. The frequencies it emits seem to be in a range that human brains process differently, Chen explained. Where the Confederation species experience terror, we just feel mild discomfort. It's still dangerous, Harris pointed out. Even if it doesn't scare us to death, it's clearly intelligent and powerful. And interested in us, Reyes added. It changed its behavior when it realized we weren't running away. Walsh considered this information. I'm sending our findings to Confederation headquarters. In the meantime, I want to know where this thing came from and what it wants. At Confederation headquarters, Ambassador Zixlara was shocked by the human report. They encountered the demon and remained functional? She asked, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly. Impossible. The data confirms it, the science officer replied. Their neural patterns show resistance to the entity's emissions. This changes everything, Zixlara said. The council must hear this immediately. The council's reaction was mixed. Some saw hope in the humans' resistance. Others worried about what the humans might do next. These humans are reckless, the Arthean representative clicked. They might provoke the demon into more aggressive behavior. Or they might find a way to communicate with it, countered Zixlara. Something none of our species could do. After hours of debate, the council reached a decision. They would allow the humans to continue their investigation, but under strict supervision. A Confederation observer would join the horizon. Back on Dornan, the horizon, Donovan had created a tracking algorithm based on the entity's energy signature. It's not random, he explained to the bridge crew, pointing to a star chart. The entity has visited these stations in a specific pattern. It's searching for something. But what? Walsh wondered. Permission to come aboard, Captain, a voice said from the doorway. A tall, blue-skinned alien stood there, Senior Adjudicator Krell of the Proximan Guard. His silver uniform glinted in the ship's lights. The Council has sent me to observe your investigation, he announced, and to ensure you don't endanger the Confederation further. Walsh didn't hide her annoyance, but nodded. Welcome aboard, Adjudicator. We were just discussing the entity's movement pattern. Krell looked at the star chart with his large, pupilless eyes. The pattern seems random to me. It's not, Donovan insisted. It's visited every major research facility in this sector, and it's heading toward this one next. He pointed to a small station orbiting a gas giant. That's Research Station Omega, Krell said, his voice suddenly tense. It was abandoned decades ago, there's nothing there. Then why is the entity heading straight for it? Walsh asked. Krell had no answer. Walsh made her decision. Set course for Research Station Omega, full speed. As the horizon changed course, the entity sensed their movement. It had been observing these strange humans who didn't fear it. Now they were heading toward the place where it all began. Perhaps they would understand what others could not. The entity accelerated, moving faster than any ship could travel. It had been searching for so long, moving from station to station, trying to find what it needed. The humans were interesting, but its mission was more important. It reached Research Station Omega hours before the horizon would arrive. The station was dark and abandoned, or so it appeared. But deep inside, systems that had been dormant for decades began to power up as the entity approached. Lights flickered on in laboratories that were supposed to be empty. Something was waiting there, something that had been hidden for a very long time. The entity flowed through the station's walls, searching room by room. Finally, it found what it was looking for, a sealed chamber with strange machines inside. The entity pulsed with what might have been excitement or urgency. As the horizon approached the station, the crew prepared for their second encounter with the mysterious entity. They didn't know they were about to discover secrets that some in the Confederation had tried very hard to keep hidden. Secrets about experiments that should never have been conducted, and about visitors from places beyond normal space and time. The USS Horizon approached Research Station Omega slowly. The station hung against the swirling colors of the gas giant behind it, dark except for a few blinking emergency lights. Scans show minimal power signatures, Alan Reyes reported from his science station. Life support is functioning in the central sections only. Any sign of the entity? Captain Walsh asked. Yes, said Engineer Jack Donovan. It's inside the station. The energy pattern is stronger than before. Adjudicator. Krell stood rigidly by the captain's chair. His blue skin had paled to a light gray, a sign of stress among his people. Captain, I must advise against boarding that station, he said formally. It was sealed under Confederation Directive 773B. What's Directive 773B? First Officer, Harris asked. Containment of dangerous research, Krell answered reluctantly. The details are classified. Walsh turned to face him. We're dealing with an entity that has the entire Confederation in a panic. If there's something on that station that might explain what it is, we need to know. I cannot permit this, Krell insisted. With all due respect, Adjudicator, Walsh replied. This is my ship. Prepare a boarding team. She looked at her officers. Patel, Reyes, Donovan, you're with me. Chen, bring medical equipment. Harris, you have the bridge. This is a violation of Confederation law, Krell protested. File a complaint, Walsh said as she headed for the turbolift, after we figure out what we're dealing with. The boarding team assembled in the shuttle bay. They wore environmental suits with enhanced sensors built by Donovan. These should help us track the entity's movements, he explained. And I've added filters that might reduce the effects of its emissions. The shuttle crossed the short distance to the station. As they approached the docking bay, they noticed that the massive doors were already open. It's almost like something was expecting us, Chen said nervously. They docked and entered the station. Unlike the abandoned outposts they had visited before, this place felt different. The air was stale but breathable. Dust covered every surface. Some corridors were blocked by sealed doors with warning signs in multiple alien languages. According to the schematics, the main research labs are this way, Reyes said, consulting his pad. They moved carefully through the corridors. Their flashlights revealed equipment that had been left behind long ago. In some rooms they found strange machines covered in dust sheets. What were they researching here? Patel wondered aloud. Nothing good, judging by these security measures, Donovan said, pointing to a heavy door with multiple lock systems. Reyes examined a terminal. Maybe we can access the station's logs. After several minutes of working, the screen flickered to life. Files appeared, most of them corrupted or encrypted. I've found something, Reyes said. Research files from 30 years ago. They're in Arcturian. Lieutenant Commander Olivia Barnes, who had joined the team for her language skills, stepped forward. Let me see. She studied the screen, her forehead creased in concentration. It's technical, but I can get the basics. They were researching dimensional phasing. What's that? Chen asked. Theoretical technology, Barnes explained. The ability to move matter between dimensions, spaces that exist alongside our universe, but operate under different physical laws. Why would that research be classified as dangerous? Walsh asked. Barnes continued reading. Because they were doing more than theorizing. They built a machine. They were trying to create stable connections to other dimensions. A chill went through the team. Donovan checked his scanner. Captain, he said urgently, the entity is moving. It's heading this way. Everyone stay calm, Walsh ordered. Remember, it didn't harm us before. The lights in the corridor flickered. The temperature dropped suddenly. Then at the end of the hallway, the shadow appeared. It moved toward them slowly, seeming to flow rather than walk. This time, Walsh stepped forward alone. The entity stopped, hovering in place. We're trying to understand what you are, Walsh said clearly. We want to help if we can. The entity pulsed, emitting a complex series of sounds. Unlike their previous encounter, it didn't retreat. Instead, it moved closer to Walsh. It's responding differently, Reyes whispered, watching his scanner. The frequency patterns have changed. It's trying to communicate, Barnes suggested. The entity pulsed again, the sounds forming a pattern. It moved past Walsh, heading deeper into the station. Then it stopped and seemed to wait. I think it wants us to follow, Walsh said. They followed the entity through corridors and down lift shafts until they reached a sealed door larger than the others. Warning signs covered it in multiple languages. Primary research chamber. Authorized. Personnel only, Barnes translated. The entity flowed through the door as if it weren't there. The humans had to use Donovan's tools to override the locks. When the massive door finally slid open, they found themselves in a vast circular room. In the center stood a massive machine. It resembled a ring standing vertically, surrounded by control panels and power conduits. The entity hovered near the machine, pulsing rapidly. What is this place? Chen whispered. Reyes moved to one of the terminals. According to these logs, this is where they conducted their dimensional phasing experiments. The logs say the project was abandoned after an incident, Barnes added, reading from another terminal. They detected something coming through their artificial dimensional opening. They couldn't control it, so they shut everything down and sealed the station. They detected something coming through, Walsh repeated, looking at the entity, or someone. The entity pulsed frantically now, moving between the machine and the humans. Captain, Reyes said excitedly, I think I understand. This entity, it's not a creature from our universe. It's from whatever dimension they accessed with this machine. And I don't think it's trying to harm anyone. I think it's been trying to get back home. That explains why it's been searching through stations and outposts, Donovan realized. It's looking for a way back to its own dimension. And when it couldn't find one, it kept searching, Chen added. The neural disruption effect, maybe that's not an attack. Maybe it's just how its energy pattern interacts with most species' brains. Walsh approached the entity. Is that it? You're trying to go home? The entity pulsed once very brightly. I'll take that as a yes, Walsh said. Their communication was interrupted by the sound of the chamber door opening. Adjudicator Krell stood there with several armed Confederation security officers. Step away from that machine, Krell ordered. This facility is under Confederation quarantine. Adjudicator, we've discovered what the entity is, Walsh explained quickly. It's not a threat. It's a visitor from another dimension, stranded here when the Arcturians shut down their experiment. That is not possible, Krell said coldly. The Arcturian Dominion reported all experiments here were theoretical only. No dimensional breach occurred. Then they lied, Barnes said, holding up a data pad. These logs prove they created a stable, dimensional opening. Something came through. This entity. And when they couldn't control it, they abandoned the station and covered it up. Krell's expression changed slightly. The Arcturians would never. The evidence is right here, Walsh interrupted, and right there. She pointed to the entity which had moved closer to the machine at the center of the room. That thing has caused panic across 12 star systems, Krell said. It is a threat to the Confederation. No, Chen said firmly. It's just lost and trying to find its way home. The panic was an unintended side effect of its presence. The entity pulsed, emitting a complex series of sounds. It moved to a control panel and hovered there. I think it's trying to tell us something about the machine, Reyes said. Krell raised his weapon. Step away from the controls. This facility remains under quarantine. Nothing leaves here until the Council decides what to do. The entity pulsed rapidly, its form becoming less stable. It moved between Krell and the humans, emitting sounds that seemed almost desperate. It's afraid, Barnes realized. It thinks we're going to trap it here again. Walsh made a decision. She stepped between Krell and the entity. Adjudicator, I understand your concern, she said calmly. But we have an opportunity here to make first contact with a being from another dimension. Think about what we could learn. The risk is too great, Krell insisted. The risk is in not understanding, Walsh countered. This entity has been searching for a way home for 30 years. All the fear, all the panic. It wasn't intentional. If we help it return to its dimension, the threat ends. And if you're wrong, Krell asked. Then I take full responsibility, Walsh said. She turned to her team. Reyes, Donovan, figure out how this machine works. Barnes, keep translating those logs. Chen, monitor the entity's emissions for any changes. Patel, secure the room. She looked at Krell. Adjudicator, I invite you to observe. If at any point you believe we're endangering the Confederation, you can call in your security team. Krell hesitated, then lowered his weapon slightly. Very well, Captain, but I will be watching closely. As the humans began working on the machine, the entity hovered nearby, its pulses becoming steadier. For the first time in 30 years, it seemed to have found beings who understood its plight, beings who didn't run in terror from its presence, beings who might help it finally return home. Engineer Jack Donovan wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the complex machine. Dust covered the control panels and power conduits. Nothing had been touched for decades. The design is incredible, he said to Reyes, who was examining another section. The Arcturians were trying to create a stable passage between dimensions. And they succeeded, Reyes replied, looking at the entity hovering nearby, maybe too well. The entity pulsed and moved closer to them. It emitted a series of complex sounds that none of them could understand. It's trying to tell us something about the machine, Barnes guessed, watching the entity's movements. But we need a better way to communicate. Medical Officer Chen had been monitoring the entity's emissions. The patterns in these frequencies, they're almost like language, but not sound-based like ours, more like neural patterns. Neural patterns? Walsh asked. Yes, Chen explained. The emissions match certain brainwave patterns. That might explain why aliens react with fear while humans just feel discomfort. Our brains process the signals differently. Could we use that? Walsh wondered. Find a way to interpret these patterns? Chen thought for a moment. Maybe. If we modified one of our neural interfaces, do it, Walsh ordered. While Chen worked on creating a makeshift translator, Donovan and Reyes continued examining the dimensional machine. According to these logs, Reyes said, the Arcturians were studying something they called dimensional resonance. They believed that every point in our universe has a corresponding point in other dimensions. Like parallel universes? Patel asked from her position near the door. Not exactly, Reyes answered. More like different layers of reality occupying the same space but vibrating at different frequencies. Adjudicator Krell had been listening, silently. Now he stepped forward. This research was banned by the Confederation Council for good reason. The risks of dimensional contamination are too great. With respect, Adjudicator, Walsh said. The contamination already happened 30 years ago when this entity came through. Now we have a chance to fix it by helping it return home. And if more entities follow it back? Krell demanded. Before Walsh could answer, Chen called out, I think I've got something. She had modified a standard neural scanner, combining it with components from their universal translator. If my theory is correct, this should convert the entity's emissions into something our brains can understand as language. Will it work both ways? Walsh asked. Can we communicate with it? In theory, Chen said, but someone needs to wear the interface to establish the connection. Without hesitation, Walsh stepped forward. I'll do it. Captain, Harris protested over the comm link from the ship. The risks are unknown. Noted, Walsh replied. She turned to Chen. How does this work? Chen placed the modified interface on Walsh's temple. It should translate the entity's emissions into words you can understand and convert your thoughts into patterns it can interpret. Ready? Walsh said. Chen activated the device. Walsh winced slightly as it powered up. The entity moved closer, its form shifting and pulsing. It emitted a complex series of frequencies. Walsh's eyes widened. I can understand it, she said in amazement. Not words exactly, but concepts, images. What's it saying? Reyes asked eagerly. Walsh closed her eyes, concentrating. It's not a creature, not in the way we understand life. It's a probe, a semi-autonomous research tool sent from another dimension. A probe? Donovan repeated in surprise. Yes, Walsh continued. Its creators are an intelligent species from a parallel dimension. They built it to explore other realities. When the Arcturians opened their dimensional portal, the probe detected it and came through to gather data. So it's not a demon at all, Barnes said. It's just doing its job like we do with our probes. Walsh nodded. But when the Arcturians panicked and shut down the machine, the probe was stranded here. Its physical form isn't fully compatible with our dimension. That's why it appears shadowy and can move through solid matter. And the fear effect? Chen asked. Unintentional, Walsh replied. Its normal communication emissions affect most alien nervous systems as fear. It's been trying to communicate, to ask for help, but everyone runs away screaming. Except humans, Patel noted. Our neural patterns are more compatible with its communications, Walsh explained. The probe recognizes this. It's been searching for the original portal site, hoping to find a way home. The entity, the probe, pulsed again. Walsh listened to the translation. It's damaged, she said with concern. Being in our dimension for so long has been harmful to it. It needs to return to its home dimension soon, or it will die, for lack of a better word. Can we help it? Reyes asked. Walsh turned to Donovan. It says the machine is still functional, just powered down. If we can reactivate it and find the right dimensional frequency, we can create a portal for it to return home. That would require an enormous power source, Donovan pointed out. The Horizon could provide the power, Walsh suggested. We could link the ship's engines to the station systems. Krell had been listening with growing concern. Captain Walsh, I cannot allow this. Reactivating that machine could create unforeseen dangers. The Confederation Council must be consulted first. There's no time, Walsh argued. The probe is deteriorating, and if it does die in our dimension, the energy release could be catastrophic. You have only the entity's word for that, Krell countered. I believe it's telling the truth, Walsh said firmly. I can feel its intentions through the interface. It means no harm, it just wants to go home. The probe pulsed urgently, moving toward the machine at the center of the room. Through the interface, Walsh received a flood of technical information. It knows how to recalibrate the machine, she told Donovan. It can guide us. Donovan hesitated. That's incredibly complex technology, Captain. If we make a mistake, we won't, Walsh said confidently. Between your engineering skills and the probe's knowledge, we can do this. Krell moved to block their access to the machine. As representative of the Confederation Council, I formally order you to cease this operation. The risks are unacceptable. Walsh met his gaze steadily. With all due respect, Adjudicator, if we don't help this probe return home, the consequence could be far worse than opening a temporary dimensional portal. Are you willing to risk that? Before Krell could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Harris's voice came urgently over the comm. Captain, we're detecting multiple Confederation warships approaching at high speed. They're demanding we withdraw from the station immediately. Walsh turned to Krell. Did you call for reinforcements? No, Krell. The Grand Hall of the Confederation Council was packed to capacity. Representatives from all 7 member species sat in their designated sections, murmuring among themselves. At the center of the hall stood Captain Elaine Walsh and her senior officers. They looked small beneath the soaring crystal dome, but they stood tall and confident. Ambassador Zix Lara of the Viridian Collective called for silence. Her 4 eyes blinked slowly as she surveyed the assembly. This emergency session of the Confederation Council is now in session, she announced. We are here to receive the official report on the incident at Research Station Omega and the entity, previously designated as the Demon. The Arcturian representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their spokesman, High Minister Vox, looked particularly stressed. His crystalline skin had lost its usual luster. Before we begin, Zixalara continued, I must note that Adjudicator Krell has already submitted his preliminary findings. The Council has reviewed them with great interest. All eyes turned to Krell, who stood to the side. His formal uniform gleamed under the lights. I confirm that my report is accurate and complete, Krell stated. I witnessed all events described therein. Zixalara nodded. Captain Walsh, please present your findings to the Council. Walsh stepped forward. The journey back to Confederation headquarters had taken 3 days, giving her team time to prepare their report and evidence. Honorable Representatives, Walsh began. What you called the Demon was not a demon at all. It was a semi-autonomous research probe from another dimension. Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. Walsh continued, her voice carrying clearly over the noise. 30 years ago, Arcturian scientists at Research Station Omega conducted secret experiments in dimensional phasing. They successfully created a portal to another dimension. The probe came through that portal as part of its normal function, to explore and gather data about other realities. She gestured to Reyes, who activated a holographic display. Images from the station's logs appeared, showing the original experiment and the moment the probe emerged from the portal. When the Arcturian scientists saw the probe, they panicked. They shut down the portal, abandoning the probe in our dimension with no way home. Then they sealed the station and classified all records of the experiment. The Arcturian High Minister rose to his feet. These accusations are outrageous. We have the complete logs from the station, Reyes interrupted, displaying more images. And analyses of the dimensional technology. The evidence is conclusive. High Minister Vox sank back into his seat, his protest dying away. Walsh continued. The probe's physical structure was not fully compatible with our dimension. That's why it appeared as a shadow-like entity that could move through solid matter. Its normal communication emissions were interpreted by most Confederation species' neural structures as intense fear. But not by humans, Ambassador Zixalara noted. No, Walsh confirmed. Human neural patterns process these emissions differently. We experienced only mild discomfort, allowing us to maintain contact with the entity long enough to understand it. Medical Officer Chen stepped forward. The probe wasn't trying to harm anyone. It was trying to communicate, to ask for help finding its way home. But whenever it approached, most species experienced such extreme terror that they couldn't understand its attempts at contact. Engineer Donovan took over the explanation. For 30 years, the probe searched Confederation space, looking for the technology that could send it home. It visited research stations and outposts, hoping to find something similar to the portal that brought it here. But everyone it encountered fled in panic. Until it met humans, Zixalara said thoughtfully. Yes, Walsh agreed. We were able to establish communication using a modified neural interface. The probe guided us back to Research Station Omega, where we reactivated the dimensional portal and helped it return to its home dimension. The hall was silent as the council members absorbed this information. Finally, a Marinian representative bubbled a question from his water tank. If this entity was truly harmless, why did it cause such extreme fear reactions? There was a second entity, Walsh explained. A fragment that broke off from the probe during its passage through the original portal. This fragment was damaged and dangerous. It fed on fear and may have deliberately amplified the terror response in those who encountered the probe. What happened to this fragment? The Nebulans asked, their cloud forms darkening with concern. It was destroyed when the portal collapsed, Walsh assured them. It attempted to follow the probe back to its dimension, but we prevented its passage. Security Chief Patel added. The probe confirmed that this fragment was dangerous even in its home dimension. Destroying it was the right decision. High Minister Vox stood again. This is all very convenient, Captain, but you have destroyed Research Station Omega. How can we verify any of this? We preserved all the station's data, Reyes countered, displaying more evidence, including the original Arcturian research that you claimed never existed. The council chamber erupted in shouts and arguments. Ambassador Zixalara called repeatedly for order. When the noise finally subsided, she addressed the Arcturian delegation directly. Is this true? Did your scientists conduct unauthorized dimensional experiments and then abandon the results of those experiments? High Minister Vox looked around desperately, then slumped in defeat. The experiments were conducted without the knowledge of the Arcturian High Council. When we discovered what had happened, we deemed it best to seal the records. The scientists responsible were disciplined privately, and the entity, the probe, was left stranded in our dimension for 30 years, Walsh said quietly. Misunderstood, and feared when all it wanted was to go home. Silence fell over the chamber. Even the normally chatty Artheans were still, their mandibles motionless. Finally, Ambassador Zixalara spoke. The Confederation was founded on principles of peace, understanding, and ethical scientific advancement. The Arcturian actions violated those principles. This council will determine appropriate sanctions. She turned to Walsh and her crew. But today we must also recognize the contributions of humanity. When faced with an unknown entity that terrified even our oldest and most advanced species, humans responded with curiosity rather than fear. They sought understanding rather than destruction. They found the truth and helped a lost visitor return home. Walsh nodded respectfully. Any of your species might have done the same, given our unique neural compatibility with the probe's emissions. Perhaps, Zixalara said, but we did not, you did, and the Confederation is better for it. The formal council session concluded with the establishment of a special committee to review all dimensional research and create new protocols. The Arcturians were suspended from the Science Council pending a full investigation. After the meeting, Walsh and her crew gathered in a smaller chamber with Ambassador Zixalara and Adjudicator Krell. What will happen now? Walsh asked. The Arcturians will face consequences for their deception, Zixalara replied. But more importantly, the Confederation will change. For centuries, we have explored space believing we understood the nature of reality. Now we know there are other dimensions, other forms of life so different from our own that we can barely comprehend them. The probe left us with data, Reyes mentioned. Information about its home dimension and the beings who created it. Yes, Zixalara said. The Council has voted to establish a joint research initiative between humans and the Viridian Collective. Together we will study this data and perhaps one day establish peaceful contact with the probe's creators. A fitting outcome, Walsh said with satisfaction. There is one more thing, Krell added. The Council has voted to fast-track human involvement in Confederation affairs. Your species has demonstrated a unique perspective that we now recognize as valuable. As they prepared to return to the horizon, Chen approached Walsh privately. Captain, there's something I didn't mention in the official report. What is it? Walsh asked. In the final moments of contact through the neural interface, the probe shared something personal. It said that its creators had been observing our dimension for a very long time. They've been waiting for a species that could bridge the gap between our realities. They were waiting for humans? Walsh asked, surprised. Not humans specifically, Chen clarified. Any species that could see past differences to recognize sentience in unfamiliar forms. Any species brave enough to help, rather than harm out of fear. Walsh considered this. Do you think we'll see them again? The probe seemed certain of it. Chen replied. It said this was only the beginning. On the bridge of the USS Horizon, the crew prepared to depart from Confederation headquarters. Their next mission would take them to unexplored regions of the galaxy, farther than any human ship had ventured before. Course laid in, Captain, announced the helmsman. Proceed at standard speed, Walsh ordered. As the ship moved away from the station, communications officer Martinez suddenly straightened at his console. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's unusual. On screen, Walsh ordered. The main view screen showed only static at first. Then patterns emerged, similar to the pulses the probe had emitted, but more structured, almost like writing. Can we translate it? Walsh asked.